Welcome to Troubleshooting Instance Issues. When instances do not work, we will learn how to fix them. This means when your SAP BTP applications stop running properly, you will gain the skills to identify and resolve these problems. For example, if a weather app shows blank screens instead of forecasts, you will troubleshoot its service bindings and configurations. Mastering these techniques ensures your solutions remain reliable and operational. Troubleshooting saves time and reduces frustration. This means systematically solving problems prevents wasted effort and stress. For example, if an app will not start, checking its logs first can quickly reveal a missing configuration, fixing it in minutes instead of guessing for hours. Adopting this methodical approach makes resolving issues straightforward and efficient. You will be able to solve common problems yourself. This means gaining skills to independently resolve typical technical issues without waiting for support. For example, if your application fails to start, you will know how to check service bindings and logs to identify the cause. Mastering these steps builds confidence in handling everyday challenges efficiently. We will use simple steps anyone can follow. This means breaking down complex problems into clear, manageable actions. For example, if a service instance will not start, first check its status in your BTP cockpit. This straightforward approach helps you systematically identify and resolve issues, ensuring you can effectively manage your instances. Common instance creation problems and their solutions. Instance gets stuck in creating status. This means the system started but cannot finish setup, often due to resource limits. For example, if your global accounts service quota is full, your HTML5 application instance will not progress. Always check your available quotas and service plans to resolve this. Instance fails and shows failed status. This means the service could not start properly due to an error. For example, if you request a database instance but your quota is exceeded, it will fail. Always check the error logs to diagnose and resolve the specific cause of the failure. Error messages about missing information. This means you haven't provided all the required details the system needs to create your instance. For example, trying to create a subscription without selecting a specific service plan. Always double-check all form fields to ensure they are completed correctly. Problems with service availability. This means the specific SAP BTP service you need is temporarily down or undergoing maintenance, preventing new instances. For example, the SAP HANA Cloud service might be unavailable in your region, so you cannot provision a new database. Always check the service status before attempting to create an instance. Begin by verifying the instance's current operational status. Open SAP BTP cockpit in your browser. This means accessing the central web interface where you manage all your SAP BTP resources and services. For instance, a developer would do this first thing each morning to monitor their applications. This is your primary tool for daily management tasks. Go to your space and find the service instance. This means navigating in SAP BTP to your dedicated project area and locating the specific cloud service you have set up. For example, if you created a database instance, you would look for it there. This is your starting point to verify the service is active and accessible. Look at the status column, it tells you what's happening. This column shows if your service is ready, being updated, or has an error. For example, if you see started, your service is active and ready to use. Always check this column first to know your instance's current operational state. Green means working, yellow means processing, red means problem. This tells you if your service is running, being set up, or has an error. For example, creating a database might show yellow briefly before turning green when ready. Always check this status first to understand your instance's condition. Understanding status messages in SAP systems. Creating instance is being set up. Wait patiently. This means your SAP BTP service is currently being provisioned and configured in the background. For example, when you order a new database instance, it enters the creating state while the system allocates its resources. This is a normal process, so please allow it to complete without interruption. Update failed. Something went wrong during changes. This means the system encountered an error while trying to apply your requested modifications. For instance, if you try to update a service instance, but your quota is exceeded, you will see this message. Always check the detailed logs to identify the specific cause of the failure. Creation failed. Instance could not be created. This means the system encountered an error while trying to set up your requested service or application. For example, if you request a database, but your account lacks sufficient memory quota, it will fail to deploy. Always check the logs for specific failure reasons to resolve the issue quickly. Ready. Everything is working correctly. This means all components are active and functioning as expected. For instance, when your application shows ready, users can log in and process orders without any issues. This status confirms your system is fully operational and ready for use. Instance creation has failed. Do not panic, this happens to everyone. Instance creation can fail due to temporary issues like network glitches or quota limits, not necessarily your mistake. For example, you might get an error if your trial account's service limit is reached. Simply retry or check your account resources. This is a normal part of the learning process. Check the error message for clues. The system often tells you exactly what went wrong, like a missing permission or quota. For example, if creating a service instance fails, the error might state insufficient quota, meaning you need more resources allocated. Always read these messages carefully to quickly resolve the issue. Look for missing information in your setup. This means carefully checking all required fields or dependencies you might have overlooked. For example, if creating a database instance fails, perhaps you forgot to select an available service plan. Always verify your inputs to resolve these issues quickly. Verify you have permission to create instances. This means your user account must be granted specific rights in SAP BTP to provision services. For example, if you are a developer without admin access, you cannot set up a new HANA Cloud instance. Always confirm your role assignments before attempting to create resources. Step 2. Verify your configuration settings. Review the parameters you entered. This means carefully examining all the settings and values you just configured to ensure they are correct and complete. For instance, after setting up a connection to your SAP S/4HANA system, verify the correct host name and login credentials were used. This crucial verification step prevents errors and saves significant time later. Make sure all required fields are filled. This means every mandatory input in your setup must have a value before you proceed. For example, when creating a destination, if the URL field is empty, the configuration cannot be saved. Completing these fields ensures your services will function correctly and avoids errors later. Check for typing mistakes in names. This means carefully verifying that all names you have entered, like service instances or destinations, are spelled correctly and match exactly. For example, if you name a service ProdDB but reference it as prod elsewhere, it will fail. Accurate naming prevents these frustrating errors and keeps your configuration running smoothly. Verify service plan matches your needs. This means confirming your chosen subscription level provides the right features and capacity for your application. For instance, if you are running a small demo, you would not need the expensive plan designed for massive data processing. Always select the plan that aligns with your project's specific requirements to avoid unnecessary costs or limitations. Resource quota issues and their resolution. You might have used all available resources. This means your SAP BTP account has no more free capacity for new apps or services. For example, if your trial account has 1 GB memory and your app uses it all, you cannot deploy another. Always monitor your quota to avoid this limit. Check your organization and space quotas. This means verifying the resource limits set for your BTP account, as exceeding them will prevent new services or applications from starting. For example, if your space quota allows 10 applications and you try to deploy an 11th, it will fail. Always monitor your quotas to ensure smooth operations. Some services have limits on instances. This means you can only run a certain number of copies of that service at the same time. For example, the SAP HANA Cloud Service might restrict you to creating only 2 database instances in your account. This quota system helps manage shared platform resources efficiently for all users. You may need to delete old instances first. This means removing unused or outdated services to free up space for new ones. For example, if your trial account is full, delete a completed demo project to deploy a new application. This simple cleanup ensures you can continue working without quota constraints. Step 3. Access the instance logs for monitoring and troubleshooting. Go to your instance in the cockpit. This means navigating to your specific application or service within SAP BTP's web interface. For example, if you deployed a travel approval app, you'd select it from your list of subscriptions. This direct access lets you view its operational logs immediately. Click on the instance name to open details. This means selecting the specific instance from your list to view its dedicated page with logs and settings. For example, if you have a Dev Payment App instance, clicking its name shows you its runtime logs for debugging. This action is essential for accessing the detailed information you need. Look for logs or diagnostics section. This is where the system records runtime events and errors for your application. For example, if your app fails to connect to a database, detailed error messages will appear here. Always check this area first when troubleshooting issues to quickly identify and resolve problems. Logs show what happened during creation. This means the system records every step and event, so you can see the exact process and any issues. For example, if your instance fails to start, the logs will reveal a missing configuration or error. Always check logs to understand and resolve problems quickly. Reading service logs in SAP BTP. Logs show each step of the creation process. This means logs record every action taken when a service is built. For instance, when creating a database, logs would capture steps like resource allocation and configuration. This detailed trail ensures you can trace and verify the entire setup procedure accurately. Look for error messages in red or with error. This means scanning the logs for text highlighted in red or containing the word error to quickly identify problems. For example, if your app fails to connect to a database, the log might show error database connection timeout. Always check these first to diagnose issues efficiently. Timestamps help you see when problems occurred. This means each log entry includes the exact date and time, allowing you to trace the sequence of events. For instance, if a user reports an error, you can check the logs for that specific time to find the error message. This precise tracking is essential for effective troubleshooting. Copy error messages to search for solutions. This means taking the exact technical error text from your logs and pasting it into a search engine or SAP community. For example, if a deployment fails, copy the specific error code like CFAP stopped to find documented fixes. This targeted search is the fastest way to resolve common issues. Addressing permission and access challenges. You need proper roles to create instances. This means your user account must have specific permissions assigned, just like needing a key to start a car. For example, without the space developer role, you cannot create a new instance in your Cloud Foundry space. Always ensure your roles are correctly configured for your tasks. Check your space developer role is assigned. This means confirming you have the specific permission to modify applications in your development area. For instance, if you cannot deploy an app, verify this role is active in your BTE account. Ensuring this role is correctly set resolves most access issues. Some services require additional permissions. This means certain SAP BTP services need explicit access grants beyond your standard user role. For instance, to use the SAP HANA Cloud Service, an administrator must specifically assign you the necessary database privileges. Always verify and request these extra permissions to avoid access issues. Ask your administrator if you need more access. This means if a system blocks you, contact the person who manages user permissions. For example, if you cannot view sales reports, your administrator can grant you the correct role. Always reach out to them to resolve access issues efficiently. Step 4. Try these recommended solutions. Delete the failed instance and create a new one. This means removing the malfunctioning service and starting fresh with a clean version. For example, if a development instance gets corrupted, delete it and provision a new, working one. This straightforward approach often resolves issues quickly and efficiently. Double-check all configuration parameters. This means carefully reviewing every setting you entered to ensure they are correct and complete. For example, when setting up an SAP BTP sub-account, verify the region, subdomain, and entitlements match your project requirements. This simple step prevents deployment failures and saves significant troubleshooting time later. Wait a few minutes and try again. Sometimes SAP BTP services need a moment to fully initialize or process your request. For instance, if you just deployed an application and it's not immediately accessible, pausing briefly allows the system to complete its setup. This simple pause often resolves temporary availability issues efficiently. Contact support if problems continue. This means if you have tried troubleshooting but issues persist, reach out to SAP's official support team for expert assistance. For example, if you have followed all setup steps for the Cloud Foundry environment and it still fails to deploy, support can investigate backend issues. Utilizing this resource ensures you overcome blockers efficiently. Getting help when stuck. Use SAP's documentation and help pages. These are official guides with step-by-step instructions for every service. For instance, if you cannot find a specific feature in the SAP HANA Cloud service, the documentation provides a direct link and explains its functions. Always check these resources first for reliable solutions. Ask colleagues or your team for assistance. This means reaching out to coworkers who may have faced similar challenges before. For example, if you are unsure how to deploy an app, a teammate might share their experience or solution. Leveraging team knowledge saves time and builds collaboration. SAP support can help with complex issues. This means when you face major technical problems that you cannot resolve, SAP's expert team is available to assist. For example, if your integration flow fails repeatedly despite troubleshooting, they can diagnose and fix it. Remember, they are your go-to resource for significant challenges. Community forums have answers to common problems. This means other users have already solved and shared solutions for typical issues you might face. For example, if you cannot deploy an app due to a memory quota error, you will likely find step-by-step fixes in forum posts. Always check these first to resolve issues quickly and learn from others' experiences. You are now a troubleshooting professional. You can identify common instance problems. This means you can spot frequent technical issues with your SAP BTP applications or services. For example, if an application is not starting, you might check if the service instance has insufficient memory allocated. Mastering this skill makes you a reliable problem solver on the platform. You know how to check status and read logs. This means you can verify if services are running and examine detailed error records. For example, if an application fails, you can check the service status in your BTP cockpit and review its logs to identify the specific error. This skill is your first step to resolving any technical issue effectively. You understand configuration errors. This means you can identify issues caused by incorrect system settings. For instance, if a user cannot access an app, you might trace it to a missing role assignment in the security configuration. This foundational skill is key to resolving many common support tickets efficiently. You have steps to resolve issues quickly. This means following a clear, methodical process to identify and fix problems without guesswork. For example, if an app isn't connecting, you check logs, verify configurations, and test connectivity step by step. By using these structured steps, You minimize downtime and restore functionality efficiently.